How strange is the lot of us mortals. Each one of us is here for a brief sojourn, for what purpose he knows not. But with deeper reflection, one knows from daily life that one exists for other people. First of all, for those upon whose smiles and well-being our own happiness is wholly dependent. And then for the many, unknown to us, to whose destinies we are bound by the ties of sympathy. 100 times a day, I remind myself that my inner and outer life are based on the labors of other men, living and dead, and that I must exert myself in order to give in the same measure as I have received and am still receiving. Albert Einstein. One of the leading philosophic minds of our time, Dr. Radhakrishnan, has postulated that rhythm permeates all of creation. All the creative arts and sciences, indeed, from the immediate beating of the heart to the escaping galaxies, the Sanskrit word ritya, rhythm, informs the entire cosmos. More to our purpose in our time, now that we are among the stars, the astronomer Carl Sagan feels that had he been born 50 years earlier, what science reveals today would have been figments of the imagination. Had he been born 50 years later, he would not have been involved in understanding outer space, for much of it is being perceived today. In his own words, I think myself extraordinarily fortunate to be alive at the one moment in the history of mankind when such ventures are undertaken. This is equally true of Vikram Ambalal Sarabhai. This is the retreat, family home of the Sarabhais, a rich industrial family of Ahmedabad. One of Vikram's elder sisters, Leena, remembers.
I recall all the early memories from his birth till he was about 20 years old. And we knew that a baby was expected. So we rushed home and we went to the third floor where my mother was in an adjoining room, and we found a little boy, very little boy, was so fair, and he was sleeping. And when we saw his very big ears, they were so big that we children could not stop laughing. Then later, 1924, Rabindranath was our guest at that time, and Vikram was about 5 years old. Rabindranath was a student of phrenology, and seeing this child, he immediately remarked, this child is with an unusual intellect. I think what he was most fond, even as a very small baby, were machines and engines, especially steam engines. He was given many models to play with, and he would never leave them while he was awake. Even sitting on his potty, he would be playing with his steam engine, which was just, I think, something which we could wind and use. And he would go on chuk 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 chuk.
In the words of William Wordsworth, I have seen a curious child upon a tract of inland ground, applying to his ear the convolutions of a smooth-lipped shell, and it murmured mysterious harmony with its native sea. As Isaac Newton once said, I do not know what I may appear to the world, but to myself, I seem to have been only like a boy playing on the seashore and diverting myself to now and then finding a smoother pebble or a prettier shell than ordinary, while the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me. Did Vikram know by some strange instinct that the link between man and nature could be understood through science? The fact is that even as a schoolboy, Vikram's curiosity led him to experimentation. He was educated by private tutors at home together with his brothers and sisters. At college in Ahmedabad, he saw horizons beyond the set curriculum and pursued scientific interests of his own. At the same time, he studied Sanskrit and philosophy. In the words of D.P. Gribanov, the Russian visionary, Einstein has enabled scientists to review the traditional views and conceptions of the structure of the material world, revealing deep and close ties between philosophy and natural science. By the time the young Vikram went to Cambridge, he was already influenced by Einstein, who had said a couple of years before Vikram was born, "If I have turned to science not for some material reasons, such as making money or ambition, then as a servant of science, I must be acutely interested in this question: what objective can and will that science achieve to which I have devoted myself?" In Cambridge, Vikram attained to a degree of maturity so that it was possible to say of him, "One in whom persuasion and belief had ripened into faith, and faith become a passionate intuition." It is almost as if Wordsworth had written these words for Vikram. In fact, Wordsworth did write them in Cambridge. Written these words for Vikram. In fact, Wordsworth did write them in Cambridge. Then came the Second World War. Vikram returned to India and joined the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. Here he studied under the guidance of the Nobel laureate C.V. Raman, who encouraged Vikram's interest in cosmic ray research. At the institute, Vikram met Homi Bhabha, who had worked on the cascade theory and atomic physics with Rutherford at the Cavendish Laboratory in Cambridge. Bhabha was interested in the atom and nuclear power in the service of the people of India. Homi Bhabha was later to become the head of India's scientific program in independent India. Jawaharlal Nehru had great faith in Vikram Sarabhai and felt an affinity with him. They shared a spirit of scientific inquiry. When Homi Bhabha died in a tragic plane crash, Indira Gandhi immediately asked Vikram Sarabhai to take over as chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission and a scientific advisor to the government of India, perceiving Vikram's concern for human problems. In regard to science, Einstein said, "The critical thinking of the physicist cannot possibly be restricted to the examination of the concepts of his own specific field. The present difficulties of science compel the physicist to come to grips with philosophical and human problems to a greater degree than was the case in earlier generations." Vikram's ideas also began to be crystallized in the same direction. When he saw the poverty which surrounded him, the chronic poverty of India, he took the most significant decision of his life. Henceforth, all scientific activity, both pure and applied, must be linked to the education and uplifting of the lot of the masses of India. In this, Vikram was expressing the influence of Gandhi upon his family and himself. I have felt a presence that disturbs me with the joy of elevated thoughts, sense sublime of something far more deeply interfused, whose dwelling is the light of setting suns and the round ocean, and the living air and the blue sky, and in the mind of man. Soon, the mind and heart of this young idealist, interested in cosmic phenomena, was about to collide with the embodiment of dancing matter. Now Vikram discovered a new aspect of cosmic rhythm, Bharatanatyam, and the graceful, almost impossibly beautiful Mrinalini came into his life. This was in Bangalore.
Krishna ni begane daro Krishna ni begane daro begane baro mugavanne toro begane baro mugavanne toro begane baro mugavanne toro Krishna ni begane baro.
Here was a young woman whose life was dedicated to dance and a young man given to science. How was this burgeoning love to be reconciled? Vikram wooed Mrinalini by reciting verses from Kalidas's Meghdut, the cloud messenger who brings the message of love through time and space. Mrinalini recollects that in gradual acceptance of mutual love, she recited a poem she had heard from Tagore when she was in Shantiniketan.
This love between you and me is simple as a song. It is a game of giving and withholding, revealing and screening again. Some smiles and some little shyness, and some sweet, useless struggles. This love between you and me is simple as a song. We do not stray out of all words into the ever silent. We do not raise our hands to the void for things beyond hope. It is enough what we give and what we get. This love between you and me is as simple as a song.
Was not their marriage inevitable? Hardly had the vows of matrimony been exchanged when Vikram had to take his bride to Ahmedabad because of the turmoil created by Gandhi's Quit India movement of 1942. Apart from the struggle for India's independence, to which both families, the Sarabhais and the Swaminathans, were committed, Mrinalini was suddenly involved in an accident, and she thought she would never see a theatre again. At this time, Vikram's eldest brother, Surid, died. And Vikram carried this double burden of desolation with a strange, strong equanimity. He spent his time between Ahmedabad and Baroda, looking after his father's industries, and Bombay, where Mrinalini was being treated. Week after week, month after month, with caring doctors and Vikram's help, she found that audiences were still ready to be captivated by her. When the war ended, Vikram returned to Cambridge, this time with Mrinalini. She began to discover the workaholic in her husband, waiting patiently till the early hours, while Vikram worked at the Cavendish laboratory, where Baba had worked before him. Nevertheless, these were happy times. Two young people sharing a life away from home and family, a honeymoon they had been denied after their wedding. They returned to India in 1947, the year of India's independence, the year their son Kartikeya was born. Now the happy parents each went about fulfilling their aspirations, Mrinalini to dance and Vikram to scientific inquiry. On the family estate, the retreat, Vikram took over a cottage for his work. It was here that Vikram's theoretical work was to begin its journey into becoming a major Indian institution, the Physical Research Laboratory. The foundation of the new building of the Physical Research Laboratory was laid by Vikram's one-time guru, Dr. C.V. Raman. As the years went by, this institution grew into a formidable center for theoretical and applied physics. The sun provides the driving force for almost everything that happens on Earth. Weather, rivers, vegetation, fossil fuels, and of course, life itself. But in contrast to the apparent constancy of the sun and the complete dependability of sunrise and sunset, we experience a capriciously variable environment. The fury of hurricanes and lashing ocean waves, droughts and floods, starvation one year and bumper crops another, and uncertain radio communications. The natural scientist, looking for the subtle links through which the sun affects the earth and our lives, has at last acquired, in the exploration of space, a dramatic new capability for study.
Vikram was an extraordinary personality in the sense that apart from being a scientist deeply involved with his work, in the beginning it was cosmic rays when we first got married, but it seemed to get bigger and bigger, and the whole cosmos seemed to come within his framework. And he was at the same time wonderfully human in that he was so compassionate towards everybody. Someone said, I think a very beautiful thing, that all of us have two faces. One we show to the public and one we have ourselves. And that Vikram had only one face, whether it was the gardener or whether it was the head of atomic energy in America, he was always the same Vikram. And I think this is what endeared him. He would always inquire first, how's your family? How's everybody at home? How are your children? He would remember everybody's name. And in this extraordinarily busy life, even the tiniest gesture would be so meaningful to everybody. I remember once when the Mali was cutting away some cacti from his room, just outside his room, and he asked him, why do you do that? And he said, no, sir, they're getting very old. I think they should be replaced. And he said, do you think because somebody is old, he should be always replaced? And I thought that was such a wonderful thought at that moment. His whole attitude towards life was one of love more than anything else.
Vikram had a restless mind, constantly looking to use technology for greater efficiency and productivity. Even at the young age of 28, his reputation was such that, led by Kasturbhai Lalbhai, all the textile mill owners of Ahmedabad, even the diehards, saw the wisdom of Vikram's insistence on applying modern management concepts to industry. This led to the birth of ATIRA, the Ahmedabad Textile Industries Research Association, which is active to this day and contributing to the Indian economy. Part of Vikram's philosophy was that no industry could thrive without a happy workforce. Many of Vikram's colleagues have given numerous instances of his concern for the working man and the underprivileged. One of them was Kamla Chaudhary, who was closely associated with Vikram in creating ATIRA and the Indian Institute of Management, which is an abiding model of its kind. In the words of Indira Gandhi, besides being an outstanding research scientist, Vikram was organizer, manager, and builder. He believed in the concept of planning and management through what he called horizontal controls, as opposed to the vertical controls which governments tend to use. His main concern was with the contribution of science to social action. He was interested in what science could do for communication, industry, health, and agriculture. Long before the concept became reality, Vikram had suggested the introduction of agro-industries for the uplift of the people of rural India. In spite of his feverish, multifarious activities, Vikram made time for his family and for the founding of Mrinalini's Darpana Academy of Performing Arts.
Vikram was a great lover of classical music and dance, and always went to concerts even when he was Bangalore and when he was in the south anywhere. In fact, he attended all the music and dance concerts. And when I came to Gujarat, it was naturally difficult in the beginning because Gujarati society didn't view dancers with great affection. They had the feeling that dance was not really a pursuit that should be done. But he encouraged me so much and always told me that don't think of society and what they say. Do what you really love to do, and that was dancing. And he sort of inspired me every step of the way when I was discouraged. And I think that was his real, what shall I say, involvement with the arts.
Vikram and Mrinalini's daughter, Mallika, grew up to be a dancer like her mother.
You know, it's always said that daughters are particularly close to their fathers. For many years, that wasn't the case with me. And all through my very early childhood, I used to always want to be with my mother rather than my father. And I remember overhearing Papa very often saying to Amma, when will Malli love me? It was really only when I was about 12 years old that I suddenly grew extremely close to Papa. I found that whereas my emotional makeup is very much Amma's, in my values, in my view of society, I was becoming more and more like Papa. Also, I could speak to Papa in a way that I don't think anybody else did, and he took from me a kind of inside soul voice I became. He took from me what I don't think he would have from anybody else. And it was very strange because when he saw me dance, he'd say, Mallika, you have to dance. You will be a magnificent dancer. You have to dance. I remember, for instance, times when Amma would be on tour and they had a sort of pact between themselves that till we were 13 years old, one of them would always be home with us. And I was taking a very major exam, and Papa had an invitation to go to Vienna, but because Amma was away and because he had promised to be with me, he cancelled a very major conference in Vienna. He would come to the school in the car, wait for me to come out of my exam. He would have brought lunch. He would open up the lunch, feed me, and his constant advice was, if you get nervous, breathe deeply. When you see an exam paper, before you do anything else, breathe deeply. It'll clear your mind. And I felt extremely cheated that just when I was having an adult relationship, we lost him.
Vikram's love for his own children, so well provided for, extended to those kids who did not have inherited privileges. Remembering his own childhood and the facilities so readily provided by a well-to-do father, Vikram sought to provide similar facilities for school children who might be interested in science and technology. This is the very engine which Vikram rode as a boy. Vikram did not believe in a do not touch museum. He preferred to think of a museum as a sort of playground or workshop where youngsters could come and touch and play with and experiment with working models of all kinds. Even as a member of the Gujarat University Senate, Vikram was influential in changing science curricula to expose students to investigative methods rather than learning by rote. But for primary and high school children, he helped to create the Community Science Center, a living museum where students from any school could come and experiment as they wished. Most of the facilities here are created within the center itself. There are children's laboratories for physics, chemistry, and biology. Incidentally, at the CSC, now known as the Vikram Sarabhai Community Science Center, he once said, "When I retire, I would like to come here and talk to the children." But was Vikram ever to have a chance to retire? He was a motivator, seldom destined to see the fruition of his work. To take knowledge to the villages and to appreciate the curiosity of children anywhere, the Community Science Center organizes trips such as these. The idea is to wean children away from superstition and introduce them to elementary scientific principles.
ये जादू थोड़ी है, ये समझ में आता है।
The dedicated work of the Community Science Center is today among one of Karthikeya's responsibilities as part of the Nehru Foundation for Development, originally started by Vikram. As Karthikeya says,
so through the Nehru Foundation he saw setting up of a forum for development. What I and colleagues of mine, what we tried to do was to take this further, and as we went along and we transformed this hill from a barren hill to almost a little wooded place, a mini forest. I remember Raju and I and our eldest son Mohal spending time bird watching every weekend, and we found how truly the squirrels and the birds really brought that life into it. They would come and eat out of our hands, and one established a new link with nature, which was like almost a rediscovery, a new discovery, but going back to roots, where Papa used to continuously like the outdoors, used to take us out. He loved mountains, he loved the streams, he would go trekking, and we had great fun sometimes trekking together, because my wife also likes the outdoor world very much. And it brought all those experiences together in the formation of what then became an environment center. The only way we will truly be able to achieve long-term sustainable development in India is if you also look after the environment which sustains this development. To today's setting up of the National Center in '84, which is the Center for Environment Education, which has become now the pioneering National Center for Excellence in the field of environmental education. We have people coming for training from Africa and South and Southeast Asia. We have formed this national network. We are collaborating with agencies in different parts of the world. And I think in many ways, I think what has come up in this campus is something which Dr. Vikram Sarabhai would have greatly liked to see. And I have said this at other places, that one of the things I miss the most is to share with him what has really come about of these dreams which he had.
a dream, a vision, yes, but Vikram was preeminently practical. From the very time man ventured into space, Vikram wanted to use satellite technology for the benefit of the villages of India. He conceived of a television program to inform farmers of weather conditions and improved methods of agriculture. This resulted in the satellite instructional television experiment known as SIGHT. It was of great benefit to farmers.
It will be our constant endeavor in the years to come to provide the peaceful uses of outer space for the real problems of this nation.
In 1962, Vikram Sarabhai took over the responsibility of organizing space research in India. He became the chairman of the Indian National Committee for Space Research for setting up the Tumba Equatorial Rocket Launching Station. He initiated a program for the manufacture of French Centaur sounding rockets in India. He was the moving spirit behind the manufacture of Indian rockets at Tumba, such as Rohini and Menika, among the first rockets produced there. Vikram Sarabhai frequently said in public, "There are some who question the relevance of space activities in a developing nation. To us, there is no ambiguity of purpose. We do not have the fantasy of competing with the economically advanced nations in the explorations of the moon or the planets or manned spaceflight. But we are convinced that if we are to play a meaningful role nationally and in the community of nations, we must be second to none in the application of advanced technologies to the real problems of man and society." As he said at the UN Conference on the Exploration and Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, held in Vienna in August of 1968.
It is not accidental that on the soil of India, the great space powers, the United States, the USSR and France, are collaborating with us at the equatorial range near Tumba.
Vikram continued to say, "This international facility has received United Nations sponsorship and is a unique example of nations following different political paths, joining together for promoting the peaceful uses of outer space. Modest as that achievement is, I believe it provides a model of great significance to the future. So too is the experimental satellite communications Earth station at Ahmedabad, which has received support from the United Nations Development Fund and the International Telecommunications Union, and now runs an international training center. At a press conference, Vikram Sarabhai once said, "Special consideration is now being given to the peaceful uses of outer space of particular significance to developing countries. A most exciting prospect within our reach in the next few years is the establishment of what is known as a synchronous satellite over the Indian Ocean. It would keep constantly under observation the vast area of the Indian Ocean, which has as yet very few observing points from which we can derive information of great importance for meteorology and long-range weather forecasting. An equally exciting development is a synchronous direct broadcast television satellite, which would make available a most powerful means of mass communication to reach about 2,000 million people in economically depressed regions of the world. A synchronous satellite can provide for national needs of point-to-point communications, for mass communications through direct broadcast television to promote national integration, as well as the economic development of isolated communities, for meteorological observations covering the vast Indian Ocean, and for assisting navigation, just for one application, namely the provision of broadband communications for reaching through television 500,000 villages of India. It can be shown that using satellites, the investment would only be about a third of what would be required with conventional technologies. At a science congress, Vikram once told the delegates, "The role of space activities in stimulating the growth of technology and industry in advanced fields such as electronics, communications, cybernetics, and in materials engineering is well recognized in the advanced nations. This applies equally to developing countries such as India. We see today that many industries are flourishing and providing employment because of the space program, which also provides creative opportunities for our growing scientific community." Vikram Sarabhai's vision has been realized within a very short span of time with the efforts of his colleagues and the many young people he gathered into his fold. Dr. Kasturi Rangan, chairman of the Indian Space Research Organization, who was a young scientist recruited by Vikram, says, "Our space program today stands as a concrete example to show how high technology can be built up by a developing country and applied for down-to-earth applications. Today we have an impressive array of achievements in putting to use space technology for vital applications, for telecommunications, television broadcast, weather watch, and for getting information on our agricultural output, forest wealth, water resources, minerals, and many more. A large part of the benefits aimed at the uplift of the poorer sections of our society. In the not distant future, we should have a fully self-supporting space program precisely tuned to our development needs. And that should be a tribute to the father of our space program, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. In the configuration of time and space, the intensity with which Vikram worked was such that although his mind might venture into space, time was to take its toll. Upon an ordinary day, he decided to go to Trivandrum and the Tumba rocket range. His daughter Malika had a premonition which she could not quite comprehend.
I pleaded with Papa not to go to Trivandrum just for one day. We had planned to be together at New Year's Eve in Ahmedabad, Amma, Papa and I. And I said, what's the point of going just for one day? Let's just go home tonight. And I pleaded and he said, I'll be back.
After a hard and tiring day's work, Vikram told his long-time friend Thakur that the following morning he would go for a swim. Then they would go together to interview someone who wanted a job, then to the airport, and so home. Home? What home? Vikram Sarabhai could not keep his last promise to his family, but he kept the unspoken promises he had made to his country. The great poet Iqbal has said, सितारों से आगे जहां और भी हैं, अभी इश्क के इम्तिहान और भी हैं. Beyond the stars, there are worlds yet to be. There are experiences of love yet to be.